and welcome back to Slightly More News, the first and only Monday edition of Even More News. We're working on it. Hi, good morning. My name is Katy Stoll.
Good morning, Katy. I like that full title. I think that works really well. Up until we're working on it. I think we include that. I'm Cody, by the way. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the news. We can just call it the news. Is that confusing to people?
It might be. I don't know. Everything's confusing, so it's fine. Jonathan is also here.
Hi. I'm going to put Even More News in the title of the feed until I'm definitively told otherwise. So you guys can call it whatever you want.
You probably won't ever be told anything specific, so...
Great. Then have at it.
Fun bit we'll keep doing.
Why don't I start talking about the news?
Yeah.
And great. So last week we were talking about the judicial standoff, mostly over this immigration, or not quite immigration, deportation deal. We want to talk more about the specifics of the deportation deal, which are, to not use an SAT word, bad. Trump is ending temporary protected status for a couple 100,000 Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. So there's 532,000 people in that group who have been warned to leave the country by April 24th. It's part of this self-deportation thing they're pushing. And Trump is also considering whether to cancel the temporary legal status of 240,000 Ukrainians who fled to the U.S. Over the last several years. So that's a rough one. And we've also learned more about the conditions in this El Salvadoran prison where suspected Venezuelan gang members and other people
And others, yeah.
It's horrifying.
And vaguely others.
Jonathan, over the weekend, sent us an article he'd read detailing the specifics of the conditions, and it is so ghastly. Again, reminding people there's still no evidence that these people are Venezuelan gang members.
A lot of these people, appear to have been caught up in this because they were Venezuelan or appeared to be Venezuelan and had tattoos, but this Time reporter says it's not all that either. He says the intake began with slaps. One young man sobbed when a guard pushed him to the floor. He said, "I'm not a gang member. I'm gay. I'm a barber." I believed him, but maybe it's only because he didn't look like what I had expected. He wasn't a tattooed monster. I have some issues with this phrasing here.
God.
When I read that, I went,
Right, but the American people have been sold a image of who is being rounded up and thrown without due process into this torture prison, and it's not what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you gotta have monstrous enemies no matter what. And so we have solidified that idea and who that is, but apparently we're expanding that definition.
Yeah, absolutely stunning lack of justice for people. Horrific reality that we're facing. All of the self-deportation. There's something so... all of it's so dystopian. You've got basically a month to get your affairs in order and pay for your own ticket, find housing, supposedly, somewhere else.
Leave your stuff, I guess.
Leave your stuff, your family, your job, friends, go to another country that you might not have lived in for decades and decades and decades. It's hard to wrap my mind around the scope of this. I am assuming that a lot of the people watching and listening to this have also seen the variety of different stories coming down the pipeline of people, this couple of 35 years in Southern California who have done everything right, showing up for their check-ins, have now been deported and leaving their families behind and have to leave the country. People traveling outside of the United... This is entering in slightly different territory, but I'm on a roll, so I'm going to say it. People traveling in Germany, coming back, or England, all over, Canada, coming to the United States with work visas, with whatever, having lived here, or just being detained, sent back because of their social media posts, because they have what are we talking about? I also understand that we're paying more attention to this. I don't know how much of this kind of stuff has happened in the past, but I'm going to venture a guess, not much.
Not like this.
Not like this. Because I have heard some people say like, well, yeah, it's always terrible if you get detained. It's terrible conditions. Yeah, that's not an excuse for this being ramped up and like making it okay in some capacity. Does that make sense?
Well, and yeah, it's normalizing all the cruelty of it and encouraging it. It's the ASMR videos of like, this is what you get. Like, it's making it cutesy. It's making it fun. It's making it like an everyday thing. It's mixing this like soup of like anybody. It could be anybody. We're going to like the indiscriminate rounding up of people, which we talked about before the election, and sending them overseas, threatening domestic terrorists, people who key cars and stuff like that, to deport these like American citizens to this foreign prison as well. Like, there's just all these aspects of it at the same time, all while you have people in the administration and people in the journalism world and punditry sort of just cheering it on, or at the very least accepting it, and in most cases accepting this fake idea that there is no due process for anybody. If you're a non-citizen or undocumented or any person who's not like a natural born citizen in America, to them, the Constitution doesn't apply to you, which is absurd and not true and antithetical to even just like this idea of like, well, you know, these are God-given rights and we're the best country in the world. Look at all these amazing rights we give people. But only us. Like, wouldn't you want them to apply to everybody when they're in the land that's the greatest land in the world? Isn't that so, like, there's just this dissonance going on with all this stuff. It's very, very frustrating to see. But Tom Homan was asked about due process. Like, do they have any due process at all? And his response was, what was Laken Riley's due process? Well, victims of crimes don't really get due process in the way we're talking about. That's not even how words work. The person who killed her got due process. That's how it works.
But I guess he's arguing like the Constitution's bad and shouldn't have said that. If someone commits a crime against someone who didn't get due process for that crime, like, it's gibberish to try to
it's nonsense
parse what he's saying.
Yes, and that is ultimately what it is. Most of these people, including the president and the vice president and all the people around them, are just saying, well, the Constitution shouldn't say that. Mm-hmm. We don't want it to say that. We don't want basic rights, the right to due process, things like that. We don't want that to apply to anybody, but honestly, probably like not even only American citizens, but like specific kinds of American citizens.
I want to play this clip from Brian Kilmeade on the wonderful morning show Fox and Friends.
Oh, good.
They're just like us.
Whose argument is, I would say, well, it's equally damning as Tom Homan's, but in a different way.
I also think it's not practical to think that we can do due process on 8 million people. No. There's 22 million people here, and minimum illegal already just in the last 3 administrations. And there's some people that got through with Trump's administration. If we're going to give every these guys a day in court and a lawyer, we can't do it. They don't deserve it. Our system doesn't need to be double burdened.
So instead of the Tom Homan, like, due process is bad, Brian Kilmeade is saying, well, it's just not practical to do it. It's inconvenient to have due process in the Constitution because of what we want to do. And maybe the Constitution should have had an asterisk, unless it's really tough to do it.
It's absurd. This is exactly what we said before the election. It's not practical to do this with due process, which they do deserve. So what's going to happen is that they're going to round up a bunch of people indiscriminately and ship them away without this very cruelly. And a bunch of people who don't deserve it are going to get swept up in that. To that point, Kilmeade, what the fuck are you talking about? And they don't deserve it, is what he said. How do you know? How do you know if you're not giving them due process? If you're not giving them their day in court, how do you know they don't deserve it? That's the point.
The whole idea of like, we are going to deport people, but only the criminals. we're going to deport people that shouldn't be here, that are violent.
Well, are you going to give them due process so you can determine who those people are?
This is exactly what we talked about. What makes them a criminal? What exactly is it? What is the crime that means that you need to be deported? Well, it's just the crime of being here. And again, you'll see these lines of argument like, "Whoa, they're doing it wrong. They're not doing it the right way." Except that you're deporting people that are doing it the right way. You're deporting people that have done everything right, that are paying taxes. Again, that's money, that's income for our country if you want to look at it like that too. So what are we talking about here? It's just that
from every angle,
they're not white.
It's wrong from every angle. It's gross. I can't believe they're all saying it, and so few people around them are like, that's a good point about due process and how if we don't give it to them, that's fine because it's hard to do, and they don't deserve it anyway. And I know that because of my racism, I guess. Like it's like baffling some of these sentences that they're saying out loud. Like, but that doesn't make any sense.
Well, and even if even if it's Bin Laden and we got him here, or he doesn't deserve to, it's like, okay, maybe not. Take it up with the Constitution, man.
I don't know.
It says that there's this process for doing things. Aren't you guys like in love with this document? It's not a new one that was added. It's one of the original ones.
They're in love with it when it comes to gun rights.
Yeah, well.
Oh yeah, that one is, but fine, like, right? Like,
that's fine.
A bunch of us on the left have issues with guns, but it's like, take it up with the Constitution. If we had the 2/3 here and there, we would maybe change it, and we can't, and that's
democracy.
And then people who are very much against gun, shouldn't be able to own any gun, will say overturn the second or repeal the Second Amendment. These people aren't saying repeal the Fourth. I'm sorry. I think due process is Fourth. But like, they're not saying repeal it. They're saying, well, these people don't deserve it, but we're going to keep it in place. Like if I were to be arrested, obviously.
You get it.
Like if I, or me or my wife or brother or anything, we don't deserve that stuff. I also want to point out that a lot of what Trump is doing in his administration is very unpopular. And this stuff isn't. And I think there's a couple reasons for it. I don't think people have a full idea of what's going on, and they're not allowed to interview these people, and which you would have to confront the fact that like, oh, this isn't what's in my mind as a gang member who also like, unless they've committed a crime, you can't just arrest someone because, maybe if they're designated a terrorist organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
There we go. Exactly.
But like you will read like articles in the New York Times and the Washington Post where they interview Democrats, not even elected officials, just ordinary libs who will say like, we really screwed up on this immigration issue. If we had addressed it the way Republicans are addressing it, maybe things would be different.
I just get so frustrated.
If only we'd done more pre-fascism.
Look, Biden wasn't the most effective president and everything. He deported just as many people as Donald Trump first term. He worked to expand legal pathways, which before this election, I did hear a lot of conservatives talking about, like, I'm pro-immigration. I just want them to do it the right way. Well, you're not paying attention to the ways that we're trying to make that an effective pipeline for people, a way for people to actually legally come here. Because it's so complicated, people are trying to do whatever they can, taking their best shot at how do they get here. And anyway, I'm rambling, but just coming back to this, it's just nobody understands what's actually happening. Nobody understands the effort that's been put in to try to mitigate this, but they're just turning to the cruelty now because look who's in charge.
Real quick. Fifth Amendment, our producer Moana corrected me, as you are right to do. So thank you. Just clarification.
Thank you, Moana.
So in addition to the end of all the protective status, the IRS is trying to come to a deal with the Trump administration that runs it to allow IRS data to be mined for potentially undocumented immigrants.
Sounds real bad.
Which would be a huge betrayal of what we have told immigrants for decades, which is pay your taxes. This is all part of this fair system. It's not going to be held against you. It's not going to be used to deport you. And of course, it just means America going back on its word to its own citizens, to countries around the world. Who's gonna, let's say Trump's gone and things, go back to normal. Who's gonna trust the United States ever again?
Like for anything, like every single thing that we've purported to be is like, but actually like not really, which, that's true in a lot of cases. It's like what you're saying was like, this current state of things is like, nope, never mind. And
even the myth of America has eroded at this point, I think. And yeah, you cannot trust us. Definitely not with this administration, but maybe not with any of them.
There's a interesting thing I've seen, and this is maybe just sort of my brain focusing too much on this like word, but like I've seen a lot of pieces describing these changes as deals.
Yes, it says
that's not what
IRS nears deal with ICE to share addresses of suspected undocumented immigrants.
There's a lot of stuff like that about these agencies and like making deals with the administration that I just don't feel as like the language that was used in the past about decisions made or like these kinds of like agreements or changes in policy.
Part of the deal.
That's an interesting point.
I don't like. There's nothing to say about it. I guess it just seems like
noting that
it's there's something there. Obviously,
it's
art
more
of the deal
this
stuff
government
and like
as a business shit.
Yeah, and like sort of lending Trump this sort of like aesthetic and language that he wants.
I think that's a good point, Cody.
And also
something to watch.
Something to watch is also just interesting where it like also kind of implies we're like, I guess we got to make a deal. We're like, there are all these agencies who are like, we don't want to do this. This isn't how things are run. This isn't what we usually do.
This is a government, not a business.
The deal was made. You gotta honor the deal.
Well, it's going to not just hurt our standing or our reputation around the world, but it's going to hit our economy as well, because usually in the summer, a lot of people from around the world come here to go to New York or go to Disney World. And they probably don't want to do that anymore in case Customs and Border Protection or ICE doesn't like the look of them, and then they could be detained. Or their
social media. I mean, there's been travel advisories issued against coming to America from
or like you're saying, social media.
Many places.
More and more people are getting detained for like just pro-Palestinian sentiment on their social media. So just don't post and don't go anywhere, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an academic coming here for a conference, they will go through, your papers, your social media to see what kind of academic you are. They don't like academics at all.
No, it doesn't matter what kind.
And the biggest decline in tourism is coming from, of course, our neighbor Canada, who not only like with other countries, might be afraid to come here at the moment, but also they're really pissed at us. I would argue
for good reason,
with good cause. People from Canada would come here a lot because you can do that on a road trip. It's not as expensive to come here as it is to go to Paris. But Paris seems a lot more appealing than flying into New York or Washington, D.C. And going through that terrifying process.
Yeah.
I was reading this article this morning in the Washington Post, why Doge is struggling to find fraud in Social Security. And it's all about how the Social Security Administration already had auditors, and there's no reason to think that Musk and his Doge boys going in there would have been able to find something that they didn't, and less than 1% of Social Security money being sent out was thought to be improper. Not that it's fraud, that it was clerical errors or people moved and stuff like that. And so now I used to think like, oh yeah, there's probably a lot of fraud in Social Security and auditors could find that. And now I think there's way less government fraud than I even thought before, because they're spending so much time and money going into it. And
right.
They can't find anything.
They want to so badly. They really want to find fraud specifically in Social Security to
put witch hunt
to clarify their hypothesis that actually like all welfare is just rife with fraud and waste, and we should get rid of it. And if they are struggling to find that is perhaps telling.
It's pretty telling.
Or maybe they're just incompetent and bad. Maybe they're idiots and shouldn't be doing it. Or it could be a combination of all these things.
Yeah.
Did you see the Commerce Secretary? I don't know if I could find this clip really quick. Howard Lutnick talking to Chamath and David Friedberg.
Oh, I've heard clips of it. And he's so wrong so much.
All right, let me see if I can find it.
He said wrong things left and right.
While we wait for this clip, since we're talking about this dumb piece of shit, remember that thing that happened before the election? Elon's PAC is offering Wisconsin voters $100 for this activist judge petition, I believe it is.
Oh, he's back at it, his old tricks.
Yeah, worked before. Just pay people and they'll sign your thing.
Still don't understand why that was legal in the first place with the election.
Time will still tell. We've got.
Will it?
I know there's some litigation bubbling about it.
Okay.
But things take a long time.
And if you win the Supreme Court case in Wisconsin, maybe it won't matter there, right?
Right.
If the bribery works.
Mark Bankston, I think, who did he's done a lot of the Alex Jones lawsuit for Sandy Hook and a lot of the recent suits going after Musk for like defamation, calling that guy a Nazi when he wasn't, and so on and so forth. But probably he'll get away with it because that's just where we're at. So
I did find the Lutnick clip. It's short.
Good.
So this is your Commerce Secretary, who I believe is a billionaire.
Yep. Yes. At least $1 billion.
Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month.
Yeah.
A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining.
What is this supposed to be evidence of? Mic drop, sir. Good
First
point.
of all, if like fraudsters like the loudest to complain, so like Elon Musk and Donald Trump are fraudsters, you say? Like the loudest, most obnoxious people in the world, complaining constantly about
the portrait of him you don't like. You know?
Exactly. But okay, I believe him when he says that his mother-in-law. I believe that the mother-in-law of a billionaire won't complain about not getting their Social Security check for a month. That is a believable claim.
Maybe wouldn't
from
even
our
notice.
Commerce Secretary.
We'll see what's happening with Social Security, how this unfolds, but just the sheer fact of shuttering offices, limiting access online, it's people are literally not going to be able to go and access or file a complaint or talk to someone about where their money is. There's going to be people that depend on this money with zero recourse, waiting not a month, many months. Who knows? God knows.
And there will be a lot of seniors thrust into poverty immediately.
Yep.
Exactly. Because they depend upon this.
Yeah.
And that's the promise that they were given.
Keeps
that they would have this
of
money.
the elderly out of poverty. Just also like only a month. Are you sure? Are you sure it's only going to be a month? Like this idea of like
that's also as if it's like
if it had paused for a month, it's fine. Why do you think it's going to be paused for a month anyway? Why only a month? Like what do you?
You can't be late on your payments to people on anything, on work done.
Social Security specifically isn't. It is all these payments go out, and they have for decades and decades and decades.
Never missed one?
Never missed one. It is one of the most efficient like programs we have, despite
and
like
popular.
oh no, the code is old. We need to fix like these things, but like the payments go out. That's what happens. And the fact that they're doing all these things to like tinker with it to make it more difficult, which again, we've talked about before, you take a service and you make it worse so that you can privatize it eventually. People get upset because it stops working as well. And then you can push the idea that, well, if the government wasn't involved, then it wouldn't be a problem. It's all part of what's going on. It's just frustrating to see them continue in all avenues, in all industries, in all respects.
And if you're mad at the guy who's doing it, you are either a domestic terrorist or you're being so mean to a wonderful, upstanding American company.
He didn't do anything. What has he ever done? I heard him say that he has never done anything bad. So why are you mad at him?
I've never called a guy a pedophile for no reason or at all.
At all, probably.
Probably.
The list could go on, but we're not going to do that to you folks at home.
We don't
That's
have
a
to.
good example. Like, it's just like, but yeah, you do. Even like, I've never done anything evil. Okay.
Said his child who's alive is dead.
But like, yeah, hard disagree. But what adult man like has been like, I've never done anything wrong. What?
If you become the richest person in the world, though, you believe
did.
that.
Also,
You're like,
literally
everything
no
I've ever
one-
done has worked out for me.
It's just also, sorry, this is neither here nor there. Such an incredibly childish thing to say because literally everybody in the world has done something wrong.
That's what I mean.
Small. I know,
Yeah.
but I just think it's so remarkably childish and stunted. It's such a tell about somebody to be like, I've never done anything wrong. Are you a human being?
Big gamer moment for him.
Yeah. And we also have verifiable proof of things that you've done that are objectively wrong. But okay, sir. Is there something fun we can chat about before we say good day for today?
I mean, we can talk about the portrait. It's funny that Donald Trump is mad about the portrait of him.
The portrait that is bad.
I'm going to be honest. This
In
one
my
missed me.
opinion,
This is
it's not bad. It's just like, that's not very good.
Well,
He just looks like Jiminy Glick
I
a little
don't
bit.
need to body shame or be mean, but like, how could a portrait of him be good? You know?
Sure. It just makes him look dopey, and he likes his like Churchill photo. You know, he likes to be, I'm the serious man, but he looks like a dope. Nobody likes a bad picture or painting of themselves, but the one in Colorado, in the state capitol, put up by the governor, along with all other presidents, was purposefully distorted to a level that even I, perhaps, have never seen before. The artist also did President Obama, and he looks wonderful, but the one on me is truly the worst. She must have lost her talent as she got older. In any event, I would much prefer not having a picture than having this one, but many people from Colorado have called and written to complain.
I'm sure
I
they
doubt
have.
that.
In fact, they are actually angry about it. I am speaking on their behalf to the radical left governor, Jared Polis, who is extremely weak on crime, in particular with respect to Tren de Aragua, which practically took over Aurora. Parentheses, don't worry, we saved it. To take it down, Jared should be ashamed of himself. His tweets are so long, man.
So bad.
Like go back to 280 or something. Like,
Yeah, this was not good for you. I just found the portrait and it is bad. It is.
It's really bad.
It's really bad. And I'll be honest, it doesn't quite look like him. But that's fine. It looks
that's him.
like he's got mumps or something.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
A little
Yeah.
bit.
I mean, whether it's intentional or not, you have now Streisand affected the portrait. I never would have seen this
No.
portrait. And that's hanging in the Colorado state capitol. Who gives a shit, dude?
There's this recent article in The Atlantic from Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic who says that the Trump administration accidentally texted him the plans to strike in Yemen. Hegseth just fucking texted him, like, here are the plans, which is interesting.
How did Jeffrey Goldberg get on that group chat?
That's
Why
a
is he on that
wild
group chat?
turn
What's
of
going on there?
events.
Interesting.
Maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe this is all 3D
Just an
chess.
interesting thing to keep an eye on with the administration and also The Atlantic.
A lot to keep an eye on. There's a lot. You know what? I'm not going to get into it now. There's a lot to keep an eye on, folks. So keep those eyes open. Full eyes. Clear hearts.
Touchdown. We're going to finals.
Hopefully won't lose. That
I mean, if
classic
you lose
catchphrase.
once, it negates the thing.
Don't lose. All right. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
This has been real.
It has.
Real nice, real fun.
Real nice, real
Great way
fun.
to start
Real
the
news,
week off.
yeah.
We will see you all here again on Friday. That's a promise. That's a fact. And you know what else?
What?
We love you very much.
Much, I guess. It's Monday.